Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar from Dogs for Better Lives. I'm Sarah Eifert. I'm the Vice President of Marketing with Dogs for Better Lives, and today I am joining you from Madison, Wisconsin. We'd love to know where everyone is attending from, so feel free to introduce yourself and share your location in the chat. For those of you who are new to us, Dogs for Better Lives trains and places assistance dogs free of charge with deaf or hard of hearing adults, children diagnosed with autism, and licensed professionals working with vulnerable communities so people with disabilities can lead safer and more independent lives. Today's presentation is part of our quarterly webinar series where our trainers and other experts provide information on a range of topics that help you better understand your dog's needs. Today's topic is caring for your pets in your estate plan, and it will be recorded for future viewing. Just check your email tomorrow. If you registered for this presentation, you'll receive it in your inbox tomorrow. To view closed captions, click this little CC box at the bottom right of this video. And just know that there will be a brief Q&A at the end of this presentation. So as you think of any questions, feel free to drop them in the YouTube chat box. You can also send them to me via email at sarah@dogsforbetterlives.org, Sarah, S-A-R-A. So today our presenter is Jennifer Sawday. Jennifer is a partner at TLD Law in Long Beach, California. She has more than 20 years of legal practice experience, and her practice is focused on all matters related to probate, trusts, and estate planning. She's also a member of our Dogs for Better Lives Planned Giving Council. So Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and to walk us through your presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me. So let's talk about estate planning. I've been doing this for about 20 years. I set up wills and trusts, powers of attorney, and healthcare directives. I probably do about 10 a week. I probably do about maybe 300 to 400 a year. So I have a high volume practice. I help people in California though. So that's the thing. So as you're taking notes, and if you're not in California, I want you to check in with an attorney near you. Every state's laws are slightly different, but everyone has the same goals to take care of their loved ones, and especially the pets. So I'm going to talk about all the things that you need to set up for estate planning, and then we're going to talk about how to incorporate planning for your pets. So let's go to the next chart. So I want all of you, if you're listening on the webinar and you can see me and you've got paper and pen handy, I want you to write down these 4 things. I want you to write down trust, will, power of attorney, and healthcare directive. And I want you to write down number 1 for the trust, number 2 for the will, number 3 for power of attorney, and number 4 for the healthcare directive. So I want you to write these 4 things down so that you have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I want you to realize that number 3 and number 4 are pretty easy and basic and are required for anybody over the age of 18, no matter where you are in the United States. So let's think about this. If something bad happens to you, you're hit by a truck and you wind up in the hospital. You're alive, but not well, but you're going to get better. But you need someone to come in, grab your purse, grab your phone, call your work, pay your bills, take care of your pet, do all of those good things. You need a durable power of attorney to allow someone to make financial decisions if you're alive but not well. Most powers of attorney spring, meaning they only work if a medical doctor says you're incapacitated. So just because you sign one today, it doesn't mean that someone can take care of your affairs. There has to be a doctor note that gets stapled on top called a certificate of incapacity. My powers of attorney require 2 doctors to certify that you're incapacitated. So if something bad happens suddenly the minute you're 18 and over, and someone needs to take care of your financial affairs, this is a great document to have. It's not automatic that your spouse would be a decision maker. It's not automatic that your adult child would be a decision maker. You have to put it in writing. And we do see now that a lot of people that are married don't have the same last name. And that's fine, but a durable power of attorney makes it clear whoever you're naming. And you get to name people in order, or you can name people together. My powers of attorney actually have provisions in there for pets. It's built into the California Probate Code to allow to make arrangements for them, to pay the veterinarian bills, or to make medical decisions for the pets. because they are considered personal property in California. So a durable power of attorney is an important document. So while you have that for someone to make financial decisions, you also need document number 4 for someone to make medical decisions. So in California, we call that the Advanced Healthcare Directive. Some other states may call it a durable power of attorney for healthcare. These forms are pretty easy. They're found everywhere. You can look at the state bar website. You can look at the court's website. You can talk to your doctor. And if you're a member of a large healthcare organization like Kaiser, United Health, or Blue Shield, they will have these on their website as well. What the healthcare directive does is if you're in that hospital, it authorizes people to make medical decisions for you. So the thing is that when you're laying there, something bad has happened, and you know you're going to get better, but you're unable to speak because you're injured, but you can see and your eyeballs are working. You don't want the wrong person to walk into the hospital room, right? You don't want to be laying there and go, oh no, you're not the one I wanted to see. You need to put it in writing, right? You need to have a healthcare directive. You need to have powers of attorney. So my daughter just turned 18 last year. So I did this for her. And I did it for her boyfriend and her best friend. Because if something bad happened to Gracie, I would not, as her parent, automatically be able to get in because I see so many horror stories. So when we talk about documents number 3 and 4, powers of attorney, healthcare directive, easy to do, talk to an attorney, do it yourself, but prepare it, get it notarized, and put it away. It's a great just in case document. And then in most states, we want to avoid probate or having to go to court. So in most states, most attorneys recommend that you set up a trust. If you own a home, you have a lot of money in the bank, you have a large life insurance policy, you have minor children that you want to take care of, or in my case, you can also set up a trust to take care of your pet. So right now I have 1 dog, a German Shepherd, and then I have 5 cats. I used to have 3 dogs and 5 cats, but as you know, people pass on, dogs pass on, and then you wind up with just 1. It's important, though, when you set up your trust and your will, that you put down everything there that you care about. So let's talk about the trust. The trust avoids having to go to court. You put in who gets what, you put in who's in charge of what, and you put in how it's distributed. So we're going to talk about in the next chart or so some options of what you can do to take care of your pets in the trust. Some states, probate's very easy. It's quick. Texas is one of them. So we don't usually set up a trust for clients in Texas, but I'm not licensed there, so you want to double check with your attorney. But in other states, it's easy. California, on the other hand, probate's a nightmare. It takes about 2 years to get through the court system. The money's tied up. The attorney fees are really high. I've been through California probate. I was 21 when my mother died from cancer. She was 46. And I thought, I was safe. I had one parent pass and I just didn't think anything of it. And then my dad died a couple of years later from a heart attack. He was 54. And so because my dad was the second to pass and I was still a law student, he died in 2001. I hadn't graduated yet from law school. So when I lost my father, I realized that he was the only one entitled for the home that I grew up in. And I had to open probate. And I was still a law student. I wasn't an attorney yet. So I had called my father's CPA and I said, my dad died. What do I do? And he said, talk to this attorney. You're going to have to go through probate. Because when I was in law school, I didn't know enough to say, Dad, you should set up a trust. I just didn't know. I was unaware. So I wound up going through the probate process and I became the daughter that's been there. And I paid about $16,000 in attorney fees and had to go through that entire process. And it was very difficult. And so after we went through the probate process, I had found out that had my dad set up a trust, I wouldn't have had to go through any of that. I would have been able to open the document, administer everything that he had, and divided it between me and my brother. And that would have been the end of it. It might have taken some time. It might have been difficult, but the situation would not have been made worse. That's the whole point about estate planning, is that you don't want to make whatever situation you have worse. We want to make it better, or we want to keep it the same. So then we set up a trust. We put everything in it. So if you have a trust already, I want you to look at it. I want you to open it. I want you to take some sticky, and I want you to put a sticky on the tab that says successor trustee. And I want you to read it. And I want you to say to yourself, is this trustee the right person? Yes, good. And then I want you to take another sticky and I want you to put a tab down on where the beneficiaries are. And if it says cash gift to my boyfriend, cash gift for this or this, and you go, oh, that's not what I want, then you know that you need to go back to your attorney and update it. But if you like what you see in terms of beneficiaries and the trustee, then I want you to make sure that everything is connected to it. So I want you to call all your banks, and I want you to look at your bank statement, pull the title to your home, and I want you to open up these papers. And so when you pull title to my home, I live in Long Beach, it says it's owned by the Sawday Family Trust. So I know my home's in the trust. It's safe from probate. And then I have accounts at Citibank, and I have an account at Pacific Western Bank. So now I have to go online and say, do I have the account in the trust? Or do I have beneficiaries for those accounts? What we want is everything that you have to have a place to go. And that is the same thing no matter where you live in the United States. If you have 100,000 in the bank, you have 50,000 in the bank, you have 20,000 in the bank, and you pass away, does your bank know what to do with that money? You can call your bank and ask. You can go online, you can look. And you could do the same thing with your life insurance. You could do it with your benefits portals through your work. You just make a checklist. You can't do it in a day, but you can take your time and go through all of those things. Because you don't want you to have a pile of money somewhere and have it be held up. Like this morning, I got a phone call from Poppy Bank. It's a small online bank. And he called me and he said, I'm the manager of the bank and your client died. And I said, oh, so who's the beneficiary? He goes, I can't tell you. And I said, oh, well, it's in the trust. He goes, I can't tell you. And I said, well, why did you call me? He goes, I can't tell you. So I said, okay, look, I understand that my client died and there's some funds at your bank. So I'm going to send paperwork, the death certificate, and what I think. But had the account been in the trust, I would have not had this awkward phone call with the bank. So the whole point is we don't want to make a situation worse, okay? So we want to connect everything to the trust. And then in my state, the wills don't say who gets what. The will is called a pour over. So it takes something that you forgot to put in the trust and it pours it over. It puts it back in the trust. We don't want to use it, but it's there in case I win the lottery, I inherit more money, I'm buying another property in Palm Springs, something coming into my life, and I'm in the middle of a transaction and I die before I finish. So that's what the pour over will is for. So when we talk about estate planning and we talk about setting up a trust, we're really talking about these 4 documents. You need a trust, you need a pour over will, durable power of attorney, and healthcare directive. And a lot of young people or retired people or folks that don't have a lot in assets, that's okay. Maybe you don't need a trust. Maybe you just need a will, durable power of attorney, and a healthcare directive. But in California, if you want to provide a cash gift for someone to take care of your pets, or you want to set up a pet trust, then we have to set up a trust. And so in my trust, and I ask clients this all the time, and usually they often tell me, you can spot a pet lover a mile away. They come in and they tell me about their kids, and they tell me about their nieces and nephews, and then there's a pause, and they go, well, what about my cat? Or what about my dog? And then they get embarrassed or they're mortified or they think it's wrong and it's not wrong. So we slow down and they get my phone and I show pictures of mine and they show me pictures of theirs. And then I say to them, well, what did you have in mind? Because my job as an attorney is to draft what they want. And they say, I'd like to leave $100,000, keep it in a trust. And I'd like the trustee to rehome my pets with the charity or the rescue or with my next door neighbor or with my best friend. And then we draft what they want. But let's go to the next chart because we've got some ideas on that. So let's go one more and then we'll come back to this one. Okay. So when I draft a trust for pets, or I put a cash gift in for pets, and you say to me, I only have a dog or I only have a cat, I'm not happy because you never know who's going to come into your life. So I always call them pets. And then when you say to me, well, my pet's name is Fluffy or my dog's name is Athena, I say, no, we're going to provide for your pet. Because if you have one and somebody passes away, you might wind up with two. When I adopted my kittens, they were buy one, get one free at the shelter. So I came home and my husband's like, oh, there's two in there. I'm like, yeah, well, I didn't have to pay the fee for the second one. So they're cute. So you never know. So I always have to use the word pet. Okay. So you never know who's going to come in. And then if you have strong feelings or rules because you have a lot of pets, then I drafted my trust, what we call a Schedule P. Schedule for pets. I pull it outside the trust, and on that schedule, you get to take it home. And you get to write for each pet that you have what their dietary restrictions are, what they need for veterinarian care, if they need to go to a certain person, or if they need to be paired up with another animal to go to the same home. And then the nice thing about the Schedule P is that if somebody passes on or you adopt another, you get to put it in there and update that without having to update the trust. And then you just kind of keep going. And then as things happen, you just update it. It's really nice. So most people often just say cash gift. I give the sum of anywhere between 1,000 to 20,000 for each pet that I may have, for each designated caretaker who takes my pet. So if you pass away and the trustee comes into your home and finds out that you have two dogs, and your trust says $20,000 per pet to rehome, and then you write down the name of the caretaker with the phone number, the trustee will do whatever they can for the week to keep the dogs safe at home. We'll then call the person, administer the trust, rehome the pet, and as soon as the money becomes available, you will get the check for that amount. And the check will become to that person for them to use as they would like. And that person will make the decision to save it for veterinarian bills and food, and it's considered a gift to them. So that's the cash gift to the caretaker to take the money. Another option that we can do here in California is to keep the funds in the trust until the death of the last of the pets. And that one is something that where we put in a little bit more money. The house is to be sold, we take the first 100,000, or we keep all of the proceeds and we keep it in trust. And then every time the caretaker needs money to pay for food bills and vet bills, then the trustee writes the check, takes care of the bills. And then when the last of the pet passes away, which is 10 years or 20 years, depending on what kind of a pet it is, then whatever is left in that bucket, it gets distributed to the charity or the remainder men that the person may put down. I don't do that as often. I find that when people rehome a pet, when someone passes away, the new owner really just takes them in, loves on them, and does as much as they can with them. But they're often grateful and have a writing for them to get a little bit of money. So I opened up a probate last year where a lady passed away in her home, and she was found dead by the dog walker. She was unable to walk her German Shepherd. And so every day, this man, Gregory, would come in, take the key, and he would take the big fluffy Shepherd, one of the big fluffy ones, a long-haired German Shepherd. So I get pictures of the dog as updates. And he found her, deceased. So he took the dog. He didn't know what to do. And then they had to call the police department. And then the county came out, and they were looking for a trust, and they couldn't find one. But they did find Post-it notes, and she had stickies in her house. And it was enough. So on the Post-it notes, it says, I give $15,000 to the person who takes my dog. The dog's name was Wolfie, and I want Greg to take it. And she signed it. And so then when the county came to me, they gave me a bunch of stickies. And I was able to treat them all as a will because she didn't have a trust. And so we opened probate. And then Gregory, the dog walker, took the dog. And he said, Jenny, when am I getting my money? Because he needed it. He lived in an apartment. It was harder for him because he was just a dog walker. And as soon as I got probate open and we got funds in the estate, we wrote him a check for $15,000. And he was just beyond ecstatic. He was grateful. And Wolfie's doing well. I get pictures. The dog has a male name, but it's a girl, absolutely the right thing. She didn't want to talk to an attorney. She was afraid, but she still did something. That's what we're looking for. If you're on this webinar and you're afraid to talk to an attorney, don't be. I'm not that kind of person. You shouldn't be afraid to come see me. You should come see me. We can sit in the conference room. We can bring our phones and share pictures and talk. We're human just like everybody else. But if you're that afraid or you're not ready or something just creating a barrier, then do a writing. Go home and take your paper out and just say, this is my will, and write down what matters to you. Because when you pass away, everyone that is still here, we just want to do what you wanted. We want to grab that piece of paper. We want the dog walker. We want to write the check. We were so happy to give him the money. We just needed to know what to do. So don't think, oh, I'm going to do the trust. I'm going to do the will. And then karma's going to come and I'm going to be dead tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. We want you to do it because it's hard to leave the planet. You have your loved ones and the pets that depend on you so much that you have to put together something to take care of them. I do have a lot of families that we don't put anything in because they know the kids will take them. I don't have it in my trust right now. I did before I had kids. Now I know my daughter will just take them. I'm hoping that she would. But at some point, you just know. But if you have them, you have to put them in. So when you talk about options with your attorney now, if you have an existing trust, different attorneys have different preferences and different ways to do it. I want you to be mindful that it may just be more than a cat and a dog, so we're going to call them pets. And then any writing that you want to provide about them and put it in your book or in your papers where you keep things is always helpful. I don't want you to keep things in your head. I want you to write out as much as you can. So if you have a certain pet that requires certain medication, certain veterinarian type help or whatever, you write it down. Because when you pass and we come into the home, we look for those things. So the other thing that I find is that when I work with my successor trustees after somebody passes away, they appreciate that when I draft that I put in some flexibility. So I often draft to say $20,000 for each pet of mine to be given to a designated caretaker. And then I might nominate who I think would be best to care for the pet based on what the person's saying. But we also want to say that the designated caretaker may be at the trustee's discretion. I've had successor trustees come back and say, Jenny, it's really great to put this in because I never knew how much the next door neighbor loved that dog. So I want to be able to say, you know what, you can have the dog. The dog can stay in the neighborhood, just go next door and we can write the check. If you don't provide for your pet in the trust, and you come to me and you're the successor trustee and you say, I have to rehome the dog or the cat and I want to give a gift, you can't. I can't authorize you to give a gift. So what we have to do is we have to get permission from the beneficiary. And sometimes they don't love pets, they don't understand, or at that point they just want the money. So I urge all of you that if you're on this webinar and you have pets in your lives, that you figure out how to incorporate that. Let's go back to the first chart. So these are questions that we were discussing about when we were going back and forth and doing the webinar. And so let's talk about question number one. What happens to a pet if you don't do any planning? Sometimes it's the worst situation. The shelter will come and pick them up. We don't want that. I want to authorize the trustee to rehome them, use the trust money to pay for someone to come in every day and take care of them, find the right rescue to rehome them, and give a nice donation or a check. The donation can be an amount that makes sense for what your net worth is. If you don't have much money, then maybe you give $1,000. If you have a higher net worth, then maybe you give $10,000. If the pets are all that you have and all that you care about, maybe you direct everything for the pet. It's up to you. I don't judge on that. But if it's important, we need to put it in. So when we talk about options, a lot of times the rescues have in their contract that if you pick up a dog for adoption through the rescue and you pass away, the rescue will take the pet back. But you have to tell them in the trust. I have a German Shepherd. My dog can't talk, right? So you have no idea that I got her from Westside German Shepherd Rescue. You just don't know. And the vet doesn't know. So now you come home and you pick up Athena. You need to open up my trust. It needs to say Westside German Shepherd Rescue will take her back and will rehome her. So I have to put in something in there to make that to work. So when we talk about how much is too much and how much money do you leave, honestly, it's up to you. Pets don't live that long. Some experience grief when you pass. Some will die shortly thereafter. It depends. So we could leave it all in trust for the pet. All of the money, every penny. When the pet does pass away in a couple of years, then it can go to your charity or your family member. Most of my clients usually leave an amount. I say the average that I see is between $5,000 to $20,000 per pet. And then pet trust, Not every state has it. California has it. It's not a separate trust. It's a trust inside your trust. So it says, I create a pet trust to be created when I pass away, and it gets activated at that time. And then we tell them how much money is in there, who the trustee is, and then on the death of the last of my pet, you write down where does the remainder of the money go. So if you put 100,000 in there, and we wind up using, let's say, 88,000 to take care of the dogs and the cats, and then in 10 years they're all gone. Now I have 12,000 left. You get to say that 12,000 goes to Dogs for Better Lives, or that 12,000 goes to whatever charity you want. You get to say it. And it's beautiful because when people pass away, we just want to do what you want. That's what happened when my mom died. My dad came to me, I was 21, and he said, do you think mom wants to be buried? Do you think she wanted to be cremated? And we didn't know. He didn't know. No one talks about this stuff, And then he said to me, because she died in 1993, and back then we used to have those funeral caravans more than we do now, where people in the streets would get blocked off. And my father said to me, your mother hated that so much. But he says, you know what, I'm going to bury her, but we're not going to do the caravan. We're just going to meet at Forest Lawn and be done with it. So we said, okay. But people just want to do. And so then when my dad died, I didn't know what to do. So we just copied, cut and paste. The service that I had for my mom, I had for him. And it's just hard for us when we're here left. When you put it in writing, we just have pieces of paper and we just go and we just follow everybody. So I really encourage you not to be afraid to do those papers. Put them aside. Don't hide them because you want people to be able to find them and do that. And then if you have loved ones that include your pets, you've got to address it somehow. Especially if you don't have children, your kids don't live near you. And then you can also name banks, trust companies. They know how to come into the house. They are professional trustees. If you carve out provisions for pets, they will do everything absolutely possible. A trust company that I work with now will put a pet sitter in the house, will keep that dog or cat comfortable until a plan can be made. It's a very good things to do. So let's go to the next couple of charts. So here are the ideas of what a pet trust may look like if I draft one. So it's inside my trust. It says, on Jennifer's passing, the trustee shall hold, administer, and distribute, and we put in the amount of the asset. I could say all or 100,000 in a trust for my pet. And then I use the word pet. And then the trustee has discretion to write checks. Oh, I'm going to set up a Chewy account. I'm going to set up an Amazon account, and the food's going to come every week, whatever. Oh, you have a vet bill, and do free treatment, grooming, and we just write checks. And then at the end, we have to write down what happens when the pets pass. So if we've run out of money, the trust just falls and terminates. If we have not run out of money and we still have some, then you can say the trustee shall distribute with that. So this is a nice clause that we use in California that's inside. And it's nice. It's really nice to get it done. So do we have another chart after this? Okay. So let's go to the next chart. So is there another chart? Is this the last one?
Yeah, this is the last one.
Okay. So let's go back to what you wrote down on your piece of paper. So if you wrote down trust, will, power of attorney, and healthcare directive. If you don't have a trust already, then I want you to go home and make a will. And in that will, you could provide information about how you want to take care of your pet. If you have a trust already, I want you to go back and talk to your attorney about doing an amendment or see what he or she recommends to take care of your pet. If you have not yet started one and you're in California, I can help you. Or you can talk to anybody in California. And if you're in Oregon or Washington and you need a referral, I can give you referrals of attorneys that I like. Some attorneys have more experience with this than others. I spent 20 years in court litigating estate plan, and then I also spent that time drafting. And when I got to court, all we were trying to figure out is what you wanted. So when we draft the trust, if I can just put in English what you want, and it's clear, then there's no issue. We just do it. So I've provided a trust for pets for Paris. I've done it for koi fish. That was a fun one. He had a lot of koi fish in his pond. They were about 25 years old. And he found a home in Texas for them. So we put in that the koi fish should be transported. The trustee should pay the transport fee. That's expensive. I know it's got to be. To rehome them in a tank of water in a special transport system and take them from California to Texas. And then he gets the sum of money to take the fish. And then I do it for dogs. And with dogs, people always want to say, all for Maggie or all for Rover. And I change the names out and I say, look, there might be another one that comes. So we have to do pets. And then we've got cats. And then I've heard everything about the cat. Right, this cat's got to go with this cat. This cat can't go with this cat. And I love it. I absolutely love it. In estate planning in California, when I set up for a single person who's not married, my average fee is about $1,500 to $1,800. If I do it for a married couple, it's about $2,500 to $3,000. So if you think that's expensive, I understand and appreciate that. But let's talk about like California probate. When I had to open probate for Wolfie's mom because she didn't have a trust, the firm got a fee of $30,000. So it's a big difference. So that $30,000 could have gone to the family, but instead it came to the law firm. And then we had to hire a neutral trustee and administrator, and he got the same fee. So $60,000 came off the top that was awarded to the people that did the work by the court. It's not a fee that we pick and choose. It's the fee that I get paid or my competitor gets paid. So it's not discounted. So probate is very expensive in California. So that's why we recommend that people set things up. In California, every homeowner should set up a trust. Everyone who has minor children should set up a trust. And everyone who wants to create particular things for their pets also needs to set up a trust to give you some help. But I'm ready for questions or specific situations if there's any.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Jen. And for everyone listening, if you want to drop any questions that you might have for Jennifer, you can do that in the YouTube chat. We did get a couple ahead of time, so I will start with those if you're open to that.
Okay.
So if I already have an estate plan in place, maybe I already have a will or I already have a trust, how do you go about changing that? Say I don't have a pet clause or anything like that in there. What can I do?
Okay. I talked about this in the webinar. If you have an estate plan and a trust already, I want you to feel proud of yourself. I really do. I don't want to take that business from the attorney. I want you to look at it and open it. And if you need to make a change to the trust part, we just do an amendment. Amendments are 2 to 3 pages. They sit on top. They have to be signed, dated, and notarized. They should be professionally prepared. But the amendment can say, I'm adding a cash gift for my pet. I'm adding a trust for pets. So you do it in the amendment. It's a nice way to really do it. You're not changing anything else, but you're just adding that.
Okay, great. And then another question came in about what should someone look for if they're looking for an estate attorney, if they want to make sure that their pets are taken care of?
That's a hard one. I think everyone in my space, in my city, actually does a really good job. The probate or the trust and estate bar that we talked about, all the attorneys are all very good. Our prices are pretty much similar. One thing is that I don't charge a consultation fee because I want you to come to the office and not be afraid. So if you are calling attorneys near you and they start charging consult fees, I would discourage that because I think that just creates friction and it doesn't work. So you want someone that offers a no-charge consultation. The attorney is usually going to give you paperwork ahead of time to fill out. We call it a questionnaire or an intake. We want you to fill it out. Just because you're putting there that you have property or you have money, my pricing isn't based on what you have. So I want you to tell us everything. It's protective attorney-client privilege, but I can't help you if you're hiding things from me. If you don't know who to talk to and you don't have a referral, then you can go on your Nextdoor website. You can go on Yelp. You can ask your real estate agent or you can ask your tax person. I get a lot of referrals from Nextdoor. I give good service. People like me. So when someone on Nextdoor and someone in the neighborhood outside, they say, oh, I need an attorney. And then you read through it. I get mentioned among my colleagues, and you just call the office and go from there. Your attorney could be anybody that you feel comfortable with. It's a hard one. I get it.
Carrie Jo has a really good question. So if you don't have family and you pass away, what triggers notification of your death so that your will and trust can be honored?
It's hard. Most people don't pass away silently. I think they just don't. You're in the hospital. Your neighbors haven't seen you put out the trash can for the week. Most people are not found dead more than a couple days in the home. Barbara was found dead, and I think she had been dead for a day. Her pets were fine. She did have a cat, and then her dog Wolfie, but the dog walker came. So I think there are ways in the universe that I can't quite explain that people just don't stay dead in a house for a long time. There's usually a first responder, the police, the neighbor. Someone comes in and they do what we call a wellness check. And if they knock on the door and they come in and they see that you've deceased at home, most people get notified within, I say, 24 to 48 hours. Is usually the time frame that I've seen on the death certificates that I've looked at. And then you also have family that just calls you. You have your brother from, Wisconsin, and he just checks in once a month. And if he doesn't call you, and he doesn't hear from you, he knows. So it all kind of comes together. And often people don't just die without not feeling well. They don't feel well. They go to the doctor. They make a complaint to a family member, and something kind of just happens. So what happens is the first responder and the police officer will come into the home, and they look on the fridge. And what they're looking for is my business card. Is it on the fridge? So if you have an attorney, you put the business card on the fridge, and they'll call me. Jennifer, I'm at the house of so-and-so. Did you do their trust? I look at my computer, and I have it. And in my trust, I have the successor trustee. And in the file, I have a phone number. And then I call, and I say, so-and-so was found dead. The police officer called me. I think you need to go to the house and handle things. Most people don't die at home now without hospice or someone watching. So if they do pass away in the hospital, then it all kind of comes together. Kind of interesting. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's a great tip to include the card for your attorney on the fridge. I didn't think of that one. Another question from Deb. So she says, I've had multiple attorneys advise that I don't need a trust. Can I add provisions to my will similar to what I did for my child, like holding money in a trust under certain conditions?
It depends on where you live. If you live outside of California and you don't own property, you can put a provision in the will. The problem is we need to figure out how much money you want to leave and how are they going to access the money. If we're going through probate, you could put the pet trust in the will. We can say I give $10,000 to take care of my dogs in the will. You can do that. That's a little bit trickier. If you came to me and I thought that you did not need a trust, let's say that you rented a condo and you didn't own property and you wanted to leave something for your pets, but I would probably ask you, did you update your beneficiary to name the designated caretaker to receive the money directly? Then I would do a writing or update the will to say what would happen to your pets and how you directed the money to that person and go from there.
Okay, great. And you mentioned something, Jen, about, this cat and this cat can go together, but these two should never, and those types of specific provisions. Mm-hmm. So say someone really, really wants to make 100% certain that their two bonded dogs go wherever together. How is that taken care of in the trust?
I usually drop that in a separate schedule.
Okay.
And I've typed up the weirdest thing. And I don't mind. They write it on a piece of paper, and I say, this cat must be home with this cat. This is the preferred person to take them both. And then I go to the next cat, and I just work my way down. I mean, what people tell me is protected. The city of Long Beach only allows you to have 6 animals, which is what I have 6. If there was 7, I would have another, but I have 6, so I'm within the city limit. But people, become rescues or they fosters and they manage to get away with it. I don't care. I don't report them. I just type. Because when you're gone, we just want to pick up what you wrote and just make it happen. The Schedule P is nice. I call it, so when you set up a trust, we want to put together a schedule of your assets. We call that Schedule A. So if you have a trust already, your Schedule A should list all your assets, where you have property, where you have land, if you have timeshares, and where you have bank accounts, checking, savings, brokerage, CD, money market, and then where you have retirement accounts. We put everything on the schedule. Because if you don't put it on the schedule, then how do I know where to go? Your bank accounts don't send statements every month, and they don't send them on paper anymore. It's all electronic. So you pass away, I'm not going to be able to log in and say, oh, you have an account in Poppy Bank. Oh, you have an account to, at this bank. I just don't know. So we put together a schedule for financial things. So your trustee knows who to call and where to go. I do the same thing for pets. I call it Schedule P for pets. And then we list everything. And I send that schedule to the client in Word. So if things change, they just update it on their own without me.
That's great. Anything else that you wanted to add today, Jen? I think we've gotten through our questions.
Okay, so let's get everybody comfortable that estate planning is not something to be afraid of. That is these 4 documents, right? And if you're not ready to do a trust or a will, then do the last 2. Set up the power of attorney, set up the healthcare directive. And then any writing that you do, like what Barbara had done, seriously, and I can mention her name because it's public record. You just go online and you just find it. It's just not attorney-client privilege. She died without anything. The charity that was getting the money called me and said, I need to open Barbara's probate. How do I do it? So I was able to get in there. But all those pieces of paper that she had, I got them. And I got her address book, and we made phone calls to her cousins and everyone. And then we opened probate, and we did everything by the book. But had she not had the pieces of paper, I would not have been able to give $15,000 to the dog walker for taking in Wolfie. So you've got a Wolfie in your life, and I've got one, and her name is Athena, and I know you all have one. Then you need to put together something. We don't want to make the situation worse. Something's better than nothing, and anything that you do can't be perfect, but it'll work.
Great. I have one last question that just came in, and that is whether people should or do put electronic passwords in their wills and trusts, so things like to bank accounts and those sorts of things.
You don't want to hide it. Okay. Your trust is going to come to you in a book from my office. You're going to get a copy, and you're going to get the original. You want to put it in the bookshelf in the den. You want to put the business card on the fridge. See, I have a trust book that I have here. Now, they come in these big binders, right? We all know what they look like. They're burgundy or they're blue, and they say estate planning. Mm-hmm. I want you to put it somewhere where the police officer, if something happened to you in a bad car accident, you fall and your neighbor finds you, somebody comes in, they could have grabbed this book. Why are you going to hide it? And I'm going to open this book, and it's going to tell me, oh, this is what I do. I don't want you to hide it. I don't want you to put it in the safe deposit box at the bank. If you have electronic copies, that's fine. You can share, but I don't want you to hide it.
Okay. Great advice, Jen. Thank you so much for everything that you shared today. This has been very helpful information for me, and I'm sure everyone who's joined us on today's call. Thank you, everyone, for attending. It's always just a pleasure to be able to share helpful information with our community. We would love your feedback on today's presentation, and then also just giving the opportunity to share what type of content matters to you. So we'll be dropping a link to a survey in the chat. So if you can take just a couple of seconds after this call to go ahead and complete that survey, that would be excellent and really helpful to us as we continue to plan out our webinar series. And I would say also just watch your email and social media channels for future Dogs for Better Lives webinars. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.